Well, this issue is raised in, as I mentioned, Robert Fritz's book, The Path of Least Resistance. His alternative to living a problem-solving or problem-oriented leadership style is to engage the creative process. So he would say the alternative is first to describe accurately where you are. Jim Collins would describe this confronting the brutal facts. So what are you able to do? What are you not able to do? How satisfied are your customers? What are your core capabilities? Are they really robust and vibrant, or are they weak and declining? And then secondly, to create a vision of what you want to create. This perhaps is the hard part, because how do you figure out where you want to go? You might go engage a consulting firm to have them tell you where you want to go, and that may or may not solve the issue. You can't go to a department store and buy one of these. It's going to come from the inside. If you take the analogy of a painter, an author, a sculptor, a composer, somewhere inside of them they see something, or they hear something, or they feel something that they believe is good and beautiful and desirable, and they try to create it. And can you do that in your business field? Now, if your vision is to make as much money as you can, this is probably not a vision that's going to inspire other people. Other people will say, why should I become passionate and engaged in your vision to make you a rich person? And this is an underlying and deep issue when we think about the employment contracts that many chief executives and senior executives have, and their ability subsequently to motivate and engage a workforce in the strategic futures that they see. There's a conflict of interest there, and a certain challenge that chief executives and senior executives face when they're trying to motivate people to buy their story. Nevertheless, whether you do that through a consulting engagement, whether you have a vision, whether you have done your homework and analyzed your industry, your core capabilities, the marketplace, and you see what needs to be done and you create that, without that vision, you will be operating in a bureaucratic follower's point of view. You'll be maintaining, you'll be perpetuating yesterday rather than creating tomorrow. You'll be operating outside in response to the problems that arrive. So in that connection, Fritz says that the way you do this is you have to answer the question, what do you want to create? This is a very different question from a problem-solving question of what are my problems and how do I solve them. It's the antithesis of that way of thinking. So problem-solving leadership, or a problem orientation to leadership, is outside in. A creation orientation to leadership is inside out, and it requires a vision and a sense of what you want to build or create or leave to subsequent generations. So you choose that, and then if you really want that, it will just begin to grow and grow inside of you, and it will make things happen. So here's some examples. You know, on the one hand, you could say the problem is we need to reduce pollution. On the other hand, the inside-out approach would be to say we want a healthy living environment. So if you're focused on reducing pollution, you might get compliance from corporations, as opposed to having the value of we want a healthy, sustainable living environment, not only for our employees, but for all of our customers. If you say we want to increase profits because you're concerned about your investors, well, how do we do that? You could contrast that inside out with how do we create a sustainable company that might mean in the short run we'd have smaller profits in order to invest in the kind of infrastructures that are necessary to continue to deliver on our customer value proposition. We need to hire or fire more people, but maybe the alternative to that would be how do we create a flexible organization where we could expand and contract with the economy without having to lay people off or bring them on. Two different orientations. We've lost control. How do we gain control, as opposed to how do we create a responsive company that will learn and be flexible and react to changes that are taking place around us. So you can see the difference. A problem orientation is outside in, and a creation orientation is inside out. Now, Michael Eisner once said, every chief executive has to spend an enormous amount of time shuffling papers. That's an interesting statement in and of itself. The question is, how much of your time can you leave free to think about ideas? To me, he says, the pursuit of ideas is the only thing that matters. You can always find capable people to do almost everything else. So I go back to our diamond model at the very beginning, where we had, remember, the 4 balls. And the first ball is you, and the question is, who are you? Are you a creature of habit, or are you a person who is constantly coming up with new ideas and finding ways to implement them to better the world around you? So the leadership point of view, do you see what needs to be done? Do you understand all the forces at play? And do you have the courage to act?